Hi, this is Julie Hudeman. Welcome to today's DM Tips webinar. Our topic today is taking your impact statement and using it for a success story. You may have noticed that in the chat box, I have a document there. So if you haven't gone there yet, please check that out. I have a document I'm letting you have access to because it's examples of things you want to look at. I will share my screen, but it'd be easier for you to be able to see the document yourself. So check the chat box and you'll get that information. So the plan here is for me to give a brief presentation. And when I finish the presentation, I'll open up the line for you to ask the questions that you have today. And we'll go from there. All right, so quick summary then of an impact statement. So an impact statement is really a report that we do. And it's really a narrative or a story that you write. And it has a very specific structure where you have three text boxes, if you will, where you're going to be describing information. The first thing that you do in your narrative is you describe what the issue or problem is. The issue or problem is the trait or characteristic that's in the community or in the population that the program is trying to address. So if you are trying to reduce diabetes incidents in your community, you might be implementing a program about diabetes, for example. So the idea is, what's the issue? You describe in statistics, you describe from some literature what the problem or issue is. And in the second box, if you will, text, you indicate what your program or research project was. You describe the program. What kind of program was it offered? In person? Was it online? Was it a hybrid? And then you also tell who the audience was. You taught them these concepts and you were teaching to high school youth, for example, something like that. That's kind of the basic idea. And then you have key findings, and the key findings are telling you an outcome of your program or project. How did the people who participated benefit from this program? And so it's the outcomes or the impact that this program has had on them. So it highlights how things have changed because of our extension efforts. And it's really written with the public in mind rather than technical or scientific audiences. So an impact statement is brief. It needs to be free from jargon or acronyms. It focuses on what were the accomplishments or the benefits to the participants or those outcomes. It's for sharing about what we're doing in research or extension efforts. And it's really a report that we do, and it can be used also for marketing. It is not a technical paper. It's not a thesis or dissertation. It's not your resume. It's not about you as the person writing it. It's written in first person. That's not correct. It's not written in first person about what you did and how you did things. And it's not a published article or citation. So it is really some rather straightforward lay language that you use to write an impact statement. So an impact statement generally has these parts. You typically have a title that you hint at what the results are from this program. You will probably be listing yourself and your team on that. And then you have your three text boxes, if you will. I keep calling them boxes because when you get to digital measures, for example, and you're reporting this, you'll see those are boxes that you fill out. So again, the first box is the issue. What's the problem? Why in the world would you have a program or a project from Extension? What's the reason you have a program? What are you trying to address? So are we addressing issues of lack of community involvement? Are we addressing issues of inappropriate application of nitrogen? Are we trying to apply issues related to the lack of STEM skills and so on? So the idea is, what are the problems? And then what has been done is where you describe your program and the audience that participate or the participants. And then you have the results. How did the people respond to the program? Did they learn something? Do they intend to do something? If you follow them longer term, have they indicated that they've changed a behavior or taken on a practice? That's the key things. You might also identify funding. It just kind of depends upon your situation. But those are the key parts of the impact statement. But really, impact statements can be more than what we do, many of us do. Impact statements are meant to be a report. As a land-grant institution, we are required to report our impact. And so the impact statement is a structured report that we write for that purpose. It's also a requirement of our roles. So those of us that work in Extension and are administering programs or administering projects, we're expected to write impact statements based on the work that we're doing, because we are accountable to the USDA, from which the legislation and the funding is coming. But we can really do more with our impact statements. Many people do their impact statement and they're done, and they move on to the next thing they need to do on their list. But you really want to take it a little bit farther. You want to take your impact statement and get more miles out of it. So you can really use the information from your impact statement to help you with your program or project marketing, or the promotion of your efforts, the promotion of your county office and the things that are happening there. So often we think about marketing as, how do we get people to show up at our events, right? So we put out a blast of marketing efforts and we say, come join us for this program. Well, that's great to do that, but you can also have promotion or marketing of your program after the fact. After you've had a program and you have results in hand, you can market. You can use that to share with your community or your stakeholders what your program did. And then as you go into the future, you use some of that those results as you promote the next program. So you're using data from your impact statement to help you provide more opportunity to promote your programs. Whether you're recruiting people for a program coming up, you're going to use data from previous programs. Or if you've just finished the program and now you have the data in hand, you can provide a promotion thing there. So the idea is, don't let it end with your impact statement. Move on to use it more and get more mileage out of it. So let's talk about how you take an impact statement and you move it into a format of a success story. So the idea is, you have results. You've written this impact statement. There are results there, and we want people to know about them. So if you're going to think about taking your impact statement and making a success story, you want to first of all shorten it. You probably want to contain it to about 300 words or less. And then you have 4 main things that you address in there, and look at you recognize these parts. Purdue Extension is doing something, and this is where you pull an issue. Purdue is going to be addressing the issue of whatever that is from your impact statement. And then the program is, or the project is, and that's what you're pulling from the what has been done section. And the participants experience certain things. So what were the results that you found? Did they learn things? Did you share some quotes from them? And then how is that extension program helping the community? So basically looking at those 4 components of your success story. Now, what I'd like you to do is take a look at that document I put in the chat. I'll also pull it up here so that I can share it. I've given some examples by program areas. What I've done in these examples, I'm going to come right back. Okay, so what I've done in these examples is I have one for each program area. So you might want to take a look at the document that is the program area you focus on. But on the left side, I'm putting an impact statement from some we've done in the past. And on the right side, I'm showing how you would write it as a success story. So an impact statement really is very concise and very, dare I say, dull, in that it just is identifying what was done and what happened. Whereas on the success story side, you have to think a little bit more like the news. You have to make it a little bit more interesting, and you have to cut to the chase. You don't have space to really share a whole lot more. So as you look at each of your text sections or your narratives, you're going to have to say, what is the most important thing in that section that I'm going to put in here? And you really trim it down greatly. So there's an example in 4-H, and again, I can't go through all of that, but I can show you what else is here. Then there's one for A&R. On the left side is an example impact statement that was written, and on the right is how you would take that and make it into a story. So again, it shows you how you've had your report in your impact statement, but now let's make it into news that you can include in a success story. Same goes for community development. Here's another example on the left, and then how you might write that as a news story, as a success story. And then finally, we have the HHS. So you have that document available to you in the chat, and you can take a look more closely at that. But this is showing you that you take the report in an impact statement and you make some news out of it by shortening it and making it into very few sentences. All right, let me switch back. Okay, so here we are. I've shown you the examples. The other thing you want to think about when you do your success stories is you want to use the marketing guidelines that we have. We've had templates in the past. Our current template is probably not as current as we would like it to be. I'll pull that up to show you on my screen here. Right now we have the Extension Does Success Stories template that's available. We had hoped the 150th anniversary template would be available right at this moment, but it's not. And if you've been around with Extension, you know there have been previous versions of this success story format, but I'll just open it to you and show you what that looks like. So the template in this case is kind of giving you an example of how you might take existing marketing efforts, and you can insert your stories in here. This template, for example, actually creates a very, very short story. Let me see, got a chat here. Yes, I will take care of getting you the document, George. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so this example template is a way you could work with the format, but you want to keep the branding that's already established, right? This is the Extension Does, but we should have an Extension 150, Purdue 150 anniversary shortly. But at the bottom, you have your own county address and information that you can fill in. So the idea is you take a heading and you put your success story in here. This version of success story actually makes it small enough that you could pick one from each program area for your county and just have a couple of sentences. That's even harder to bring your impact statement down to a couple sentences. But it's really a way that just puts in the hands of the reader something that's the most important information that you would share about your program. So this is one example of how you might do that. The other thing that you can do is you can look to the marketing guidelines that we have. And that's also here on the website. So you would look to the marketing branding. So make sure that you're using Purdue Extension and your county and the other information that might be appropriate. So I'm referring you to the marketing section here that tells you about branding. So you can use that if you're using this to create a success story. You want to make sure you have the appropriate branding with it that goes for your county. All right. So that was my quick presentation. Before I go into questions, I wanted to show you a couple of things to remind you of where the resources are. The hub has been designed to help us get at information. If you're looking for things related to digital measures and doing impact statements, you're going to look under evaluation, extension, metrics, and digital measures. And I have example impact statements there and instructions along with a short video. I'm going to show those to you right now. So here I'm in evaluation. I'm going to extension metrics. What we have now is we have a common landing spot for digital measures for the College of Ag and Extension. And I'm hoping it goes there. Let's try that again if I didn't quite get there. There it is. So I'm going to click on digital measures. So here we have the common landing for digital measures. And for today, I'm going to focus on from an extension educator perspective, but there also is for specialists, and you'll find the same information there. So I'm going to show you some information that's here about digital measures. Here is a video that tells you how to write an impact statement. It's a little bit more in depth than I gave today, quite a bit actually more in depth. And here, if you continue on, here's an instruction document right here that you can open up that tells you everything you need to know about how to write impact statements, why we write them, and so on. Also on this page, I want to show you that for today's webinar, I have that document posted right here. The examples by program area are also right here. That's where I was trying to refer you to this point as you were looking. So don't forget that there are resources available. Once you are in digital measures, remember that the instructions are also made available at the top of the screen, and they're embedded in the help tips. If you click on that question mark, there's help tips there for writing your impact statement. Anytime you have a question, please write bmhelp@list.purdue.edu when you send an email for help on what you're needing for your impact statement and your success story. All right, I'm going to stop there and open up the lines. If you have any questions, whether you would like to unmute your microphone and speak, or if you'd like to type a question or comment in the chat, I'll wait here just a little bit for your comments or questions. So there's a question here about if it's recommended to put participant quotes. Typically when you have information that you're sharing, you want to have some quantitative data and some qualitative data. It usually helps to tell the story better. So the quotes often are taken from, if you've done a post survey and you ask people for some feedback or comments, it might be from that. And often the quotes that we might do in a success story in this perspective are generic and they aren't identified to a person. If you truly wanted to do a news story on someone and you interviewed them and wanted to quote them, that's a little bit different story. In this case, it helps to have some qualitative data that shares information about what participants said. So if you'll look at the examples that I shared in that document, you'll find that there is at least one quote that puts some participant comments in that story, and it kind of helps make it a little more personal. So it's not required, but it certainly is quite helpful to have quotes. Okay, so George, you did find the document on the hub. Okay. I can also follow up with an email to send it to you just in case you need it again. But any other questions about impact statements and success stories? So the question that I see next is, are we expected to post impact in digital measures and then post a story as well? That expectation is not an expectation, no. That's something that's going to be tabulated or anything like that. It's just an encouragement to take the work that you've done in an impact statement and get more mileage out of it to help you market. This can be extended also to your social media. If you have a key finding in your impact statement, it can be something you also use in your social media efforts. So the idea is, you've done the work, you've done the program, you have results. It's good to share that for your county's program and for your community to know what's going on. So it's not a requirement, it's not an expectation, but it certainly would be helpful in your process as you're trying to market your program. Here's a question that asks, how should citations be written in the impact statement since it should not be filled with jargon? So often you don't put a whole lot of citation in there. You might put a source like CDC, information from CDC. You might put the year in parentheses and then say, this was the stats from CDC kind of thing. you don't, you might just mention it in your narrative, but you don't have footnotes and that kind of thing on an impact statement. You generally identify the source. So if we know it's National Agriculture Statistics Survey, and then you kind of put the year, that usually is enough to say what the citation is. If it's a researcher or a research group, you might put, Anderson and Smith 2019. Generally, it needs to be kind of understandable citation. So like if a person reading it, they might understand, say USDA report or something like that. So it's kind of general. It's not an official citation like you would in APA style or something for your thesis or dissertation. And they're written right into the text. They're not, like I say, a footnote or an addition to your writing. Any other questions about impact statements or success stories?